KIZZIE, by author Doris Jean Ford. KIZZIE is one of the world's greatest novels. KIZZIE, Standing Between the Past and the Future, was written by Doris Jean Ford and published in the year 2005 by Orion Publishing Company, Chairman Larry Donnell Ford. Doris Jean Ford dedicates KIZZIE to her children, 3 sons, Douglas Arthur Ford, Larry Donnell Ford, Isaac Leon Ford, 3 daughters, Linda Marie Wells, Barbara, and Miles, Betty Faye Fitzpatrick, and her husband of 60 years, Dr. Leon Ford. The author of KIZZIE, Doris Jean Ford, also dedicates her book to her 13 grandchildren and over 20 great-grandchildren. Thank you, Mrs. Doris Jean Ford, for KIZZIE. It is truly a wonderful book. Chapter 1. Spring has come to a small southern town. Mother Nature has put her beauty on display. The sunlight through the tree leaves makes shimmering sparkles of light. Birds congregate from branch to branch. Their chirping sounds like love echoes to each other. They are enjoying each moment. The air is filled with smells of magnolias. The cool spring breeze has a slight sting. This is not a day for goodbyes. Attention is pulled from the scene, as a small cavalcade of cars approached coming up the hill on a winding street. Each curve brings a shadow of despair. On top of the hill, a group of drawn-faced people stand gazing in the east direction, waiting for the cavalcade to make its arrival. They pay no attention to the singing birds. The beauty of the magnolias goes unnoticed. The cool green grass, where they stood, might as well be concrete. The cars make a semicircle near the waiting group. People filed out, one by one, of the cars. They join the waiting onlookers. This is a funeral procession. Along with the other cars, there are 2 cars that are referred to as family cars. The family is the last to get out. Out of the first family car comes a small black lady about 82 years of age. Following her is a middle-aged Caucasian lady and 2 teenage Caucasian children. The last person is a black woman in her early 40s. The family is escorted to the gravesite. All eyes on one spot, KIZZIE, the black woman in her 40s, looking pale. Her body is stiff. She drags herself along, not really wanting to get to the site. For one quick moment, KIZZIE's past flashed before her. KIZZIE began to cry. She has lived 2 lifetimes, only to get prepared for one. What now? Past events began to flood her memory. 2 women stood near a Greyhound bus as it came into view. This was where the end began. KIZZIE needed a new beginning. She stood there recalling a scene out of her past. 2 women were standing beside a bus door. One of them stepped up on the first step of the bus. The woman on the ground said, "You are doing the right thing." The other woman stood there, batting her eyes fast to keep back the tears. Her mouth quivered as she answered, "I had no other alternative. I tried. God knows I tried." The bus motor made a loud noise. It was ready to move. The woman on the ground said, "Take care of yourself." "Right, let me know how you are doing." The woman standing in the bus door said, "I will. Thank you for letting me stay with you this past week." The woman on the ground waved and whispered to herself, "Bye, KIZZIE." KIZZIE did not look back at her friend. By this time, tears were running down her cheeks. Her body felt heavy. She dragged herself step by step into the bus. She stood beside the driver's seat in a daze. The other passengers were behind her. Her way was blocked. They became anxious. KIZZIE paid no attention to them. The driver said, "Ticket, please." KIZZIE had the ticket in her hand. The driver reached for it. She pulled her hand back. "Lady, are you riding this bus? Lady, are you all right?" "Oh, the ticket," she replied without really knowing what he had said. "Takes all kinds," said the driver, shaking his head. "Next, please." After KIZZIE found a seat, she glanced out the window at her reflection. Her fair skin was pale and drawn. Her face looked older than her years. She had left the summer of her life 1,000 miles behind. She had learned that the victim of death is not the one that suffers, it is the survivor that catches the backache. 20 years of being the wife of a renowned black minister did not prepare her for the unseen event of death, however it released her from a cult-type lifestyle. Could she learn how to survive outside this make-believe world, and become her own person? The bus ride was uncomfortable and strange. She was leaving humiliation and facing defeat, as she backed toward her old hometown. Going home was not the worst thing that could happen to her at that time. Her memories of home were of mixed interpretations. She was the 5th child in the family of 6 children. Her father passed when she was 10 years old. Her mother, Mama Veta, was a small person in stature with a strong will. For some reason KIZZIE's attitude, as she remembered, was different toward her parents than her siblings. Why, was always a haunting question. After the death of her father, some unusual incidents occurred. At the time, none of this was explained. Many times while growing up she was set aside as being an example. KIZZIE somehow stood out in the community. It was no surprise when she married the young man that everyone thought would be a success. Now as KIZZIE looked back, she wondered if what she and her husband had was real love. He was a young minister and needed a wife that could help him advance in his profession. She had the skin color, the figure, and knowledge. A standout person, one he could brag on. She was never to share his life, just to be there as a showpiece for the public. Their relationship was left somewhere between the altar and the pulpit. When the I do's were said, the honoring and obeying became a one-way street. The street only went in his direction. She lived in a make-believe world. KIZZIE learned how to go along to get along. Part of KIZZIE's orientation, as being a pastor's wife, was to believe that certain clothes, activities, and moral standards had to be practiced by her. Materially she was secure. Mentally she felt like an afterthought. Submission was the main ingredient in the marriage. In fact, it was the only one she could use. If certain demands was not met or followed, KIZZIE would be reprimanded in the church service, as an example for others. She was used as an scapegoat. If he made a mistake, she would be held responsible for the error. The fault would be hers. She caused him to do whatever he did. Being married to this renowned minister rendered her useless as her own person. She was motivated by what others expected of her. Too late she realized what had happened. A lifestyle of make-believe cannot exist in the real world. Her life was tied and tangled with his to the point when he died, she did too. Only her life was the one that continued on without aim or purpose. No self-esteem. No confidence. A limited education combined with a lack of working experience deterred KIZZIE's chances for getting a feasible job. Just survival from day to day became impossible. Friends became rivals. Her allies propositioned her. Just a short while ago, these same people treated her as a celebrity, now she was treated as an outcast. After the death of her husband, because of how the church business was set up, she was forced to leave. By the time the bus made its way south, the tears was slowly dropping down on the front of her pale yellow blouse. A large man sitting beside her noticed she was crying. "Anything wrong, little lady?" "No thank you," said KIZZIE. "Something I can do." "Just let me know," the man replied. KIZZIE did not care to talk with this man. The man's size made her think about her deceased husband. Had it just been 3 years ago, or was it another life? To stay in the city, where he died, would mean struggle or turning to an even lower lifestyle. To go home was to acknowledge defeat. The church and its lifestyle failed KIZZIE. The opportunists beckoned with open arms of immorality. KIZZIE's connections with the youth at the church gave her an inroad to the young people. With her inside knowledge, the dope dealers would make millions. Why not? She could have more money than ever before, and this time she would be in control of her own life. She had tried the way she was taught. This would be a world she knew nothing about, but it promised her excitement, money, and popularity. Now as KIZZIE began to think, how could I have even thought of being a fool 2 times? Running from control and running into hell. She got a chance to talk to one of the head dope dealers and he began by taking control. You do this, and you go there and you stop here. Just one meeting with one of the heads of the dope world and she was almost caught. Again she had gotten into something that was out of her control. She received call after call. Finally the calls stopped coming. This is when she went and stayed with her friend for 2 weeks. The bus hit a bump in the highway, and she stopped remembering and took a deep breath. The man beside again wanted to know was anything wrong. KIZZIE turned her head and looked out of the window. She really wanted to go to sleep, but her thoughts would not go away. The bus ride was long and slow. This gave KIZZIE an opportunity to sort out her sordid situation. Going home to what? To a mother, 80 years old. A town that had slept for 20 years. Equal rights and integration was something heard and seen on the picture box sitting in the corner called a TV set. The way of life for blacks was to live on the other side of the tracks, or in this case the other side of the river. A job, friend, perhaps an apartment of her own? She quivered. None of this was real, not in this small town. A job in 1952 in a small southern town for a black woman. What were the alternatives? Maid, cafe waitress, car wash or cotton picker? Work was imperative. Could she humble herself to be brought to this level? In her hometown KIZZIE had been one of the girls from a well-to-do black family. After slavery, this family was one of those that were given property. Her family was among a small select group. Her mother, Mama Veta, worked as a maid during the Depression, when KIZZIE was born. No lady with dignity would work in a cafe. KIZZIE's family pride would not allow such action to be patronized. Depressed with these thoughts, KIZZIE lay back in the bus seat. The bus wheels make a squeak as it stopped at a filling station. The bus was about 2 miles from KIZZIE's destination. The bus occupants filed out. KIZZIE looks out the window and sees a familiar scene. Across the highway was where she had met her husband. It was during a Baptist convention. She was 17 and he was 19. For a few minutes KIZZIE went back 20 years. Young, happy, alive with hope in one hand, and love in the other. The man of her dreams walking by her side. A perfect match. She could hear the religious music coming from under the tent. Tears filled her eyes. The other passengers had returned to the bus. The driver touched her arm. She snapped back from a magnetic heaven to the realness of a conflicting life. This hurt she had inside, would it ever release her soul? By now, the tears were flowing again. She was getting curious looks. She became self-conscious, laid back and closed her eyes. Somehow she fell asleep. The bus made a bump getting on the river bridge. KIZZIE opened her eyes in time to see the river. She had written Mama Veta a letter to let her know what time to expect her. She was hoping Mama Veta would be alone. As the bus neared the stop, she saw her mother waving a white handkerchief. This was a scene she had witnessed at other times. KIZZIE and her younger sister would visit an older brother in the city during the summer. Just as Mama Veta was doing now, she did then. Her mother would always be there waving the handkerchief. Mama Veta had lived alone for a long time. It would be a treat to have KIZZIE home. She could hardly wait for the bus to stop. KIZZIE stepped out of the bus into her mother's arms. Putting forth all the strength she had left, KIZZIE restrained from breaking down in tears. It was difficult just to force a smile. She kept her face turned from her mother. Her mother was a small person, and KIZZIE wrapped herself around her. Mama Veta thought KIZZIE was glad to see her, but KIZZIE was holding on to her, to keep from falling. Finally she pulled away. Parked nearby was an old automobile. They climbed in the back seat. The driver grinned. KIZZIE was uneasy and a bit reluctant. Her mother noticed this and said, "Baby, I knows him. He's Jack's boy." "Tell me something," said KIZZIE. The car did not have a cab sign. But who can afford a sign when the car can just barely pass the driving inspection? As they rode back across the bridge, the beauty of the small southern town revealed itself. In the bend of the river sat white and pink magnolia trees. KIZZIE's mother lived about 2 miles from town. Several black families lived on this same farm. At one time it was just one large piece of property. Now each family owned equal sections of the property. It is very quiet as they ride toward KIZZIE's old home. KIZZIE is thinking about what the people is going to say when they find out she is here. How will she face some of the old friends that stayed here from their childhood? The quietness became too much for Mama Veta, and being a skeptical person, she began to question KIZZIE. At first KIZZIE pretended she didn't hear. She even acted reluctant to tell her mother what had happened. Knowing her mother, she knew if she didn't answer she would just go on asking. To tell her mother the story would be turmoil. She did not want to tell her mother what happened in front of the young man driving. She informed Mama Veta of her intention to tell her when they got home. Chapter 2. As the old automobile rattled along past familiar places, KIZZIE remembered the good times. The site of the old elementary school that sat on the hill came in view as they went around the bend. KIZZIE thought, my first kiss. There sitting in the schoolyard was this large tree. The one they would hide behind, and the boys would run by and kiss them on the cheek. What a thrill! A real smile came over KIZZIE's face. Across the road was a house. KIZZIE remembered how the old lady would holler at them when the boys would try to steal a kiss. Believe it or not, this same old lady was standing in the yard. She waved as they went by. Mama Veta said, "That's Sam's mama." KIZZIE: "You remember Sam?" "Yes." "The widow. Did he ever get married?" "No, baby, but he is the best catch in this county." KIZZIE shook her head. She remembered how Sam's mama made him act around girls. No wonder he was still single. His mother's favorite saying was, "Hold your head down, boy, don't look at those girls' tails." Again KIZZIE smiles. She almost felt good to be home. The driver looks through the rearview mirror at KIZZIE and grinned. KIZZIE smiles back and continued looking out at the scenery. Standing in the midst of grove trees was the Black Baptist Church, its steeple pointing upwards as a gesture of hope. KIZZIE turned her head in the other direction. Church had become a symbol of despair to her. It was here where her moral roots began to grow. Here is where she received salvation. What could have gone wrong? She looked back at the church and it was still the same. It was not this building, nor these people. The old church looked inviting, waiting to comfort any lone and lonesome human being. "KIZZIE, KIZZIE. What are you thinking about, child?" "Nothing, Mama, nothing. Just looking forward to being home." The car slowed down. It was beginning to climb the hill. The old home place sat just over the hill. On top of the hill KIZZIE could see the complete plantation. The graveyard where her father was buried was up there at the back of the hill. Each farmhouse sat on its own little piece of well-kept property. This hill was called Overseer's Ridge. It was from this hill the slave masters would watch the slaves as they worked. KIZZIE was told this when she was a child. KIZZIE wonders why is she thinking of this now. Tears filled her eyes again as the car pulled up in front of the old home place. The old place was not what she had become accustomed to, but it was peaceful and a place of retreat. "Well, baby, we are here," announced Mama Veta. The driver sat there as KIZZIE dragged the bags and suitcases out of the car. He did not offer to help. He gave no indication of moving. After everything was out of the car, the driver still sat there. Mama Veta searched through her old worn purse trying to find $1. KIZZIE opened her coin purse, pulled out a $5 bill and gave it to the driver. He gave a chuckle and drove off. Mama Veta and KIZZIE went in the house and began to get KIZZIE settled in. The old home had 3 bedrooms. KIZZIE shared a room with 2 other sisters. Her mother wanted her to take the large room, but KIZZIE wanted the same room she shared with her sisters. Some of the same pictures still hung on the walls. The bed was steady and firm. The bed was covered with one of Mama Veta's handmade quilts. The quilt contained pieces of fabric from clothing of each child. The quilt was a part of that family's history. The quilt was a pattern of memories. KIZZIE walked about touching certain items as if to say, "I'm home." It was time for bed and KIZZIE had not mentioned the reason for her coming home. Mama Veta became impatient with her and said, "Child, Mama knows ye're wouldn't come back here and leave your pretty home for nothin'. Mama done lived too long to be fooled." "What happened?" "Mama, I really rather not talk about what happened, but you are not going to let me rest until you know at least part of the story. So here it is. I struggled for 3 years after my husband died trying to keep up with a changing society, and at the same time stay in command of myself as a person. Conditions grew worse in the city until it became unbearable, so I left." "Nah, honey, got to be more than that. I can't see you leaving that pretty house I saw when I came to your husband's funeral." KIZZIE's mother looked at her, as she did when KIZZIE was a child. "KIZZIE, now I mean for you to tell me, and tell me now." KIZZIE began to tell her sordid story. Many Black Baptist churches care for the pastor and his family until the pastor's death. At this time the whole matter becomes another story. The main character is changed, therefore, like a chain reaction, the lives of the remaining family members all fall from where they were. In this case there was only me. There are always those in the congregation that feel threatened by the first family, especially the pastor's wife. When the pastor is no longer active, this gives them a chance to show authority. This group of people always include the deacon board and some jealous women. The pastor's wife is expected to be prefect, however at the same time be a fool. See, do, and hear no evil. When the pastor slips from the road of righteousness, he is accused of being a human, and therefore subject to mistakes. When the wife errs, she is no good and a bad influence on the pastor's ministry. You can believe I was constantly watched by the members and my husband. After 20 years of my service at this church, no one seemed to remember or care. My husband and I lived from what the church gave us. Our only source of support was from the church. After his death there were no salary for me. My only work was being part-time secretary at the church. I was paid a compensation fee, and at any time it could be discontinued. This amount was never enough to buy food for a week for the 2 of us. The house, furniture and my husband's car belonged to the church. My cars was always hand-me-downs. I thank God my old car was paid for and they couldn't take it. I had nothing else. Even the credit cards belonged to the church. They were given to the pastor to use only. After the funeral I had $2,000 left from the policy. Those that had vendettas against me, and you can believe there are many women in the church that wouldn't care if the pastor's wife vanished in thin air. If I tried to offer a suggestion it would be ignored. Hints of me moving began 2 weeks after my husband's death. The fellowship ministers and their family helped me for a while, but I soon became a burden to them. I must admit I was used to stretching $1. No matter how renowned a Black Baptist pastor is, his opportunity might be great, but money-wise he has none. My husband was put on a set salary. The salary was average to the base paid member of the congregation. The running gear of the church or official board will not allow the pastor to receive a salary equal to theirs. No, the church did not pay them. They were going by what they were paid on their public jobs. According to them, the pastor had a less important job. After 6 months, the chairman of the deacon board asked me out of the house. They had already taken my husband's car, which really belonged to the church. The chairman of deacons further stated they would close all credit accounts held by the deceased pastor. The new pastor and his family was waiting to take over. I was told that I would be permitted to remain a member, but my services as secretary would not be needed. Well, I never heard of such a thing in all my born day, snorted Mama. I tried to make a go of it, but with a limited occupation and no established credit, each day seemed to be going downhill. I finally came home. Baby, you sure can stay here with Mama. She go over and cuddled KIZZIE in her arms. Mama is glad you come home. Thank you, Mama. All of that is behind me, and nothing like that will ever happen again. KIZZIE did not fill Mama Veta in on all of her struggle, especially the gang experience. She have another chance to feel alive again. KIZZIE knew that lifestyle was behind her. Now she found herself in an old place, familiar, but strange. Which should have been a country retreat of peace, became a place of fright. The sounds and sights of the city unheard. The country is dark. No street lights. With these surroundings, loneliness will be her constant companion. KIZZIE had learned to use being alone as a tool to solve inward problems. This same tool would work also for her outward task. She had to plan another lifestyle for her alone. She would never allow her mother to support her. The question is, what kind of life can she have in a small town? Jobs were very difficult to find in the city. In this small town they must be few and far apart. Being a black woman would not help. She knew the jobs accessible to black women in small southern towns. Office experience perhaps would help her in the city, but not in this town. But KIZZIE had resolved in her heart that nothing would stop her from being happy and starting over again. After confirming this in her mind, she turned over and went to sleep. KIZZIE knew that was behind. She found herself in an old place, but a new environment, one that was unfamiliar and frightening. Having office experience helped. In this small town there were not many churches that needed a full-time typist. There was not any job suited for a person of her character. KIZZIE was faced with a different problem here as far as jobs was concerned. Race was still the main factor. Qualification didn't count as much as what color you happened to be. The black churches did not use a professional secretary. The white pastors wouldn't even talk about her working in their church. Some reminded her of where she was by saying, "This is a white church, girl." KIZZIE tried for several weeks to find employment without success. She did not give up hope, she held on to her determination. Mama Veta noticed KIZZIE moping around the house, and urged her to attend their local rural church. She knew KIZZIE was accustomed to attending worship service, and was sure she missed it. This could be a good place to make some new friends, and get reacquainted with some of the old ones. KIZZIE was still not quite ready to face the under-eyed looks, and the low-browed whispers. She could do without untimely questions and smart-aleck talk, but to satisfy Mama Veta, she went. The small church sit downhill from the community under a large pecan tree. KIZZIE had many rewarding memories of the time spent here. This still did not keep her from feeling uncomfortable and strange, because she was among the ones that had left and surprisingly been successful. At church she ran into an old friend, one of the few that had stayed on in the hometown. "Why, hello. Aren't you KIZZIE?" Asked Sam. "Yes, I used to be KIZZIE Brooks. I'm Mrs. Wilson now. Girl, you still look pretty as ever. I heard about your husband dying. Where are you living now?" Hesitating, KIZZIE says, "I'm living with Mama Veta, At the old house. I've been out here about 2 months. Are you figuring on staying? Yes, but I've got to find a job. What kind of work are you looking for? Secretarial work is about all I'm trained to do, but right now I just need a job. You know what, girl? My boss man needs a secretary. I'm going to talk to him in the morning and see what happens. Sam, I sure would appreciate that. It was nice seeing you again. KIZZIE dared not get her hopes up, because when they were in high school Sam was known as an oddball. He kept to himself, and only associated with younger kids. He was not the type of person one could really depend on. She told Mama Veta what Sam had said. Well baby, old Sam done got in with Mr. Paul. He's been working for Mr. Paul 20-odd years. Or more. He just about do like he pleases. If he tell Mr. Paul, "You're a good woman, you'll get the job." Oh, Mama Veta, I feel better than I have felt in a long time. I feel like I have began to breathe again. There is no way I will let this opportunity slip by me. The next morning KIZZIE was up early, and as a custom, she kneeled by the bedside and prayed. It had been a long time since she was able to really talk with the Lord. She repented for the negative feelings she had acquired during the dark period in her life. She knew that the church, and all she believed in, was still good, but the way she was treated by the members of her former church had caused her to doubt her faith in God. Today all of the faith, hope, and beauty of living had come back. She took the first moment of the day to thank God, ask Him to forgive her for doubting Him, and to continue to watch over her and help her in all of her endeavors. She could feel warm tears rolling down her cheeks as she talked with the Lord. This prayer had made her more determined to go forward. Mama Veta had made breakfast and called from the kitchen, "KIZZIE, gal, you're up?" "Coming, Mama," said KIZZIE. "Everything smells so good, but I am too excited to eat." "Gal, you can't do nothing on an empty stomach. Put some in your belly, gal." "Okay, Mama, give me a cup of coffee and a biscuit." Dat ain't nothin'." "KIZZIE, now you watch yourself. You know Mr. Paul is white. Do what he says, and don't you go getting familiar with him. You listen to her, Mama." Here, Sam's car horn blew and saved KIZZIE from a long lecture. KIZZIE grabs her purse and hurries outside to Sam's car. He sits there grinning like he had found a prize. As she reaches for the car door, he jumps, leans over, and pushes it open. "Good morning, Sam," KIZZIE says, trying to sound friendly, but not give the come-on impression. Sam says, "Hi baby," and laid his hand on KIZZIE's knee. KIZZIE grew cold all over. KIZZIE thought to herself, this can't be. I need the job, but I don't need him pawing on me. Sam senses her feeling and says, "Oh, you're not ready for that yet." "Well, baby, I can't wait." KIZZIE thought to herself, this nigger is about to kill my day. Why should he think just because maybe through him I might get a job, this gives him the right to feel on me? KIZZIE took a good look at Sam, and he was still odd-looking, with large eyes that didn't fit in his narrow face, along with his broad nose. He had a quivering snicker that made her flesh crawl. The old hatred began to come back, and she wanted to tell him to carry her back to Mama Veta's, but she could not let one person make her crawl back to an empty shadow, nor would she let him whip her in. The ride into town was a silent one. When they reached Paul's office, Sam tried to apologize with an awkward excuse. "KIZZIE, you know how it is. I've been lonely and your husband is dead, and we both are single, so you can't blame me for trying, can you?" said Sam. KIZZIE said, "That's all right, Sam, but I have other things on my mind." They went into Paul's office, and KIZZIE walked behind Sam. When they walked through the doorway, Sam stepped aside, and Paul said, "Hey Sam," looking at KIZZIE as he spoke. "Who is this, Sam?" asked Paul. "Mr. Kimball, this is KIZZIE, the girl I was telling you about." Sam gave that quivering snigger. "Yes, this is Kizzie Wilson." He said this as if to indicate this little chickadee is mine. "How do you do, Mrs. Wilson?" Paul said. "Sam told me you were looking for work. I had someone here, but she quit. This is not an easy job. If you would like to try it out, we'll see what happens." He reached out and shook Kizzie's hand, and it was like an electric shock. He held Kizzie's hand for a moment, looking in her silent brown eyes. They stood there looking at each other. This was a feeling Kizzie had felt when she was 16 years old. "What is happening to me?" she thought. When Sam had put his hand on her knee, she became angry. In her marriage of 25 years, sex had become a routine, lights off, this is the time, and that was about all to it. Now a white man has grasped her hand, and sweet chills are running up her spine. This could not be a real feeling, it must be the excitement of getting the job. She pulled her hand slowly away, and noticed Sam, as he rolled his eyes, and turned a darker shade of black. A feeling of inferiority crept over her. Remembering why she was here, and the vow she made to pursue this job, she finally spoke. "Thank you, Mr. Kimball. I needed a job, and will do my best to make things work out." "Paul, I've been knowing Kizzie all her life, and her family too. She is a good girl and the whole family are hard workers," said Sam. Kizzie wondered why Sam felt it necessary to say what he had said. Then she remembered where she was, and knew here in this small town a hard-working nigger was a good one. Paul smiled, and told Kizzie she could start today if it was all right with her, and he went into his office. Sam immediately said, "Girl, I told you I could get this job for you. Didn't I tell you that? Didn't I tell you that?" Kizzie wanted to ignore him, but he did her a big favor, so she thanked him, and he left. She felt awkward in this type of office. She tried to familiarize herself with the files, but her mind kept going back to how she felt when Paul had shook her hand. The only thing that kept her on the right track and thinking sober was the fact she needed this job and dare not blow this chance. The office, a modest one, consisted of 2 rooms. The outer office served as a place for the receptionist and advertising equipment. The building was red brick with a glass entrance. Anyone passing by could see Kizzie at the desk. She noticed several peeping toms staring through the window. When the phone would ring, she would jump. From time to time the parties on the other end would ask bluntly, "Who's speaking?" She felt that they knew that she was a black woman. During that first day, Paul would come into the outer office from time to time, to make her feel at ease, and to encourage her in what she was doing. The job turned out to be much better than Kizzie expected, and her feeling for Paul grew in spite of her trying to ignore it. Her only regret was riding to and from work with Sam. She tried to be nice, and at the same time hated each moment she was with him. Good old Sam seemed to be always there, protecting her from everyone but himself. Just thinking each morning about working with Paul made everything else secondary. Paul also felt at ease with Kizzie around, and he had learned to relax more. Paul had been lonely for a long time, and had made his work an escape from loneliness. Since Kizzie had been there, this had changed. He would find time for half-hour lunch breaks in the office. His appearance in the morning of the story became better. He grew very fond of Kizzie. He wanted his family to meet her, and to get to know her as he had. Author's note: this is April 2001. I am now 66 years old. Time is not as long as it has been. The middle of the story, by author Doris Jean Ford. Paul wanted his family to meet Kizzie. He wanted them to get to know her. He had mentioned Kizzie when talking about the office. Kizzie was not spoken of as a friend, but an employee. Paul didn't want it that way, but he knew how Elizabeth would react. His deceased wife's mother did not particularly like black people. To reveal how he felt about a black woman would be aggravating enough, but to tell Elizabeth who Kizzie really was would be a disaster. He and KIZZIE was becoming closer. It was getting hard each day to hide his feelings. The inevitable had to come about. There was no other choice but to let KIZZIE meet his family and hope for the best. Chapter 3. It was a brisk winter morning when KIZZIE got the chance to meet Paul's family. If it can be called a meeting of normal family-style relationships, this meeting was far from anything normal. KIZZIE was in the outer office. In walked a tall stately white lady with 2 teenage children. The elder lady's age took nothing from her proudness. She walked up to the desk and asked with a southern accent, "Girl, is Mr. Kimball in his office?" Feeling as if something terrible was about to happen, KIZZIE said, "Yes, Mom, he is. May I ask?" Elizabeth walks by the desk, knocks on the door. Paul calls out, "Come in, KIZZIE." Elizabeth opens the door and rushed in. Paul stands up. He was surprised, to say the least. He tried to smile and speak in a calm tone. "Well, hello, Elizabeth." "Hi, Lisa." "Hi, Philip. I was not aware you were coming in this morning, but I am glad you did." The tension was so heavy everyone was afraid to breathe. KIZZIE wanted to find a hole to crawl in. There was nowhere to hide. KIZZIE sits at her desk and begins looking stupid, fumbling with papers. Lisa, Paul's 13-year-old daughter, play with the green plants on KIZZIE's desk. Philip, Paul's 16-year-old son, stood over by the door with his arms folded. He looked as if he agreed with his grandmother in her scornful manner. He looked at KIZZIE as if she was an untamed monkey. Paul moved back from his office door. Elizabeth pushed the door closed, but KIZZIE could hear clear what was being said. Elizabeth did not care who heard. She disrespected the children and KIZZIE. Her voice was loud and angry. She shouted, "Paul, you didn't tell me that colored girl was here as your secretary." Out front at the reception desk of all places. "No, I had to find it out from someone else." "Have you lost your mind? It's a wonder if any good and decent citizen would want to come in this place. How could you dare do this to us? Do you know who this woman is?" "Elizabeth, calm down. This is my office. You have no right coming in here talking against my employee," said Paul. "Paul, what are your friends going to say? Not to mention my friends and family. I have been shamed before by these same people. My God, I won't be able to step out of my house." "The children, think about the children," Elizabeth said while sobbing loud. Paul said, "I can handle my children. And as for my friends, if they are my friends, then they will be happy with whatever make me happy." Still crying, Elizabeth tries to sound pitiful. "Son, I knew you hired a colored girl, but I thought it was one of the local gals. You can use them for cleaning, but not work in the front office. I never dreamed you would do this to your family." Angry, Paul said, "Elizabeth, I am sorry. I must leave. I have a job out of town. We will discuss this when I return this evening." Paul pushed the door open, walked past Elizabeth to KIZZIE's desk. He paused a moment and looked at KIZZIE. To KIZZIE he looked humiliated and ashamed. KIZZIE wanted to reach out and pull him over to her and whisper, "Understand, sweetheart." But that would have been like adding gas to a roaring fire. Paul tells KIZZIE this is his family. He doesn't try to apologize, he just leaves. Elizabeth tells the children to go to the car. Lisa hugs KIZZIE around the shoulders. "Lisa," shouted Philip, "did you hear grandmother?" "I'm coming, Philip," Lisa said. The hug from Lisa brought tears from KIZZIE's eyes, but Lisa's sweetness was broken by a statement from Elizabeth. "Gal, the best thing for you is to be gone when Paul get back." "I mean out of town," said Elizabeth. "Why should I?" asked KIZZIE. "If you don't, you and your mama will regret the day you were born," said Elizabeth. She is trying to take her vengeance out on KIZZIE. This is something KIZZIE know nothing about. KIZZIE said, "Leave Mama Veta out of this. I am of age to take care of myself." Who do you think you are, talking to a white woman like that? Because you are working in this office, don't let that go to your head, Gallons. You are still a colored girl. When I say leave, I mean leave. You and your nigger family have already caused me enough pain. Elizabeth started to cry again. I will leave when Paul asks me to, said KIZZIE. Well, I never. Who told you to call him Paul? He is Mr. Kimball to you, don't you ever forget that. Just wait until I tell Paul how you talked to me. Paul will run you out of town. I dare you come back here and try to sneak into this family. Elizabeth shouted. What do you mean? Asked KIZZIE. You are not crazy. Gallons, you know what I mean, replied Elizabeth. This rubbed KIZZIE the wrong way. She got angry and jumped up from the desk. Elizabeth was standing toe to toe with her, looking Elizabeth straight in the eyes. Beth backed up. What are you accusing me of? By this time KIZZIE was a two-bit black hustler, said Elizabeth. KIZZIE was furious. She said, listen, old woman, Paul hired me as he would any other person. I have the ability, and you and no one else will force me from this job. You didn't hire me and you cannot fire me. Just leave me alone. You just wait. Something is going to be done about this. Elizabeth strolls out the front door with her head held up high. KIZZIE sits back down in her chair and begins to analyze and try to put what happened in its proper place. Should she have said what she said, or should she have just kept quiet? Paul was not there to come to her defense. He left her there to face the ugly remarks alone. Had she fooled herself to believe he felt something for her? When it came down to a choice, would Paul choose the popular color white? He had chosen. His leaving was clear evidence. How could she be such a fool? She abandoned everything she was taught as a child about white people. She thought, oh God, are you turning on me because of my actions against the church? Could she have forgotten so soon that in this same town black men were hung for walking on the same sidewalk with a white woman? All the white woman would have to say was, he insulted me, and the black man would be in trouble. When she left this town 25 years ago, black and white signs was still on the doors of restrooms. The only job for a black woman at that time was being a maid. Oh, what a fool I am to let my lustful feelings lead me into another tangled predicament, thought KIZZIE. What happened? Paul was polite, thoughtful, and his manner was unquestionable. The body chemistry was there. The way I could feel his eyes follow my body movements as I walked around the room was real. All this made me feel for sure he cared for me. Was he just waiting a chance to bed down with me? Mama Vida warned me. Sam hinted unfair suggestions about Paul. Were they both right? It is no mistake how I feel about Paul. He makes me feel young and ready to take on the world single-handed. Somehow my narrow mind, though he felt the same. KIZZIE had just about made up her mind to get out of this town fast. Sam had become a big problem. Mama Vida was so busy matchmaking she couldn't see how miserable KIZZIE was. KIZZIE had saved up enough money to get her back to city and start over again. Perhaps the money would last long enough for her to find employment. Chapter 4. KIZZIE sat thinking with her eyes closed. The door opened. She opened her eyes. Standing in the door was Paul. KIZZIE, are you all right? Asked Paul. She wanted to run into his arms, but instead she answered, yes, Mr. Kimball. Paul came over to the desk and caught KIZZIE by both hands. Looking into her tear-stained eyes, he said, KIZZIE, I am sorry for what happened here today. She got up slowly from the chair. He was still holding her hands. They stood there with their eyes locked with an extraordinary gaze, speaking with their hearts. The world around them stood still and held this moment with time, letting them release a combustion of feelings. He turned her hands loose. His arms found their way around her waist. He pulled her close to him, eagerly at first, and then gently. He whispered, "Darling, I love you. I have wanted to do this for a long time." KIZZIE whispered, "Paul, Paul dash." Paul placed his lips on hers, stopping her whispering voice. He kissed her lips, then her face. He found her lips again. This time she parted them slightly, and slipped a little tongue out for him. He wanted more. She gave it to him. A car door slammed, and broke the spell. The world around them suddenly came back into focus. KIZZIE backed out of Paul's arms. Paul said, "Darling, I need you so much." The door opened. In walked Sam. "Mr. Kimball, I thought you went out of town," said Sam, with a tone of anger. "I was supposed to, Sam, but I changed my mind," answered Paul, very stern. Sam asked, "KIZZIE, are you ready to go home?" Before KIZZIE could answer, Paul said, "Sam, I'll carry KIZZIE home." Sam looked at KIZZIE as if she was something dirty, and said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Kimball, I'll be fine." Sam stood there looking so embarrassed. Paul went in his office, and this gave Sam a chance to tell KIZZIE what was on his mind. "Ooh, I thought you was a decent woman. If I had have known what I know now, you never would have gotten this job. I almost got on my knees to get you this job. This is the way you thank me. I looked through the window, and saw that white bastard pawing over you. If he carry you home this evening, he can pick you up in the morning, and from now on." "Sam, it is not as you think. He is trying to make up for what happened here today," said KIZZIE. Sam said, "Not like I think, huh? What I think, that white son of a bitch is trying to have his cake and eat it too." "Wait a minute, Sam," said KIZZIE. "I have not given you reason to talk like that." Sam gets very insulting. Yeah, baby? No, I wasn't good enough for you. You always have to hit the top. Just like your first husband. That dog had to die for you to be free. I loved you then, and I would have made you a good husband. The hired hand won't do. You must have the boss man. Well, Miss High and Mighty. Miss Big City High Class Mama. When these white folks start running you out of this town, don't look for me to help you." KIZZIE told Sam, "I don't need you. Sam, you did help me. I appreciate everything you did, but you do not own me. No one owned me." Sam predicts defeat. "Mark my word. Old Lady Elizabeth will hear about this. You thought you had it hard in the city. KIZZIE, you ain't white, you are going to get it. You ain't seen nothing yet." Sam left. He slammed the door. Paul heard the door, and came to see what the commotion was about. KIZZIE stood trembling with anger. He walked past KIZZIE over to the door and locked it. Paul knew Sam was jealous of him, and how he felt about KIZZIE and how KIZZIE felt about him. Paul said, "Sweetheart, calm down. Sam cannot hurt us. He can cause us to have unwanted problems worrying about him. Paul, I am confused. Where do we go from here? Let me handle everything. We love each other. Let us begin with that. I don't think it would be wise to carry you home. Take my car. You can use it for your transportation. Are you all right now?" "Yes, Mama Veta must be waiting. I do not want to face her, but I must." KIZZIE left the office happy. Especially to know she would not be riding with Sam anymore. Knowing Paul loved her made everything else a poor second. Even Mama Veta, with all of her fury, wouldn't put a damper on her newfound love with Paul. When she arrived home, Mama Veta was waiting. Mama Veta didn't hesitate. She attacked KIZZIE with furious words. "KIZZIE, I warned you not to get familiar with Mr. Paul. Sam tells me you're let him feel on your gal. You ain't got to do that to keep no job. Keep yourself decent. The Lord do the rest." "Mama, Sam is not telling it as it is." "Well, dog nap it. You're tell me like it is. Paul loved me, and I love him. It didn't just happen. We both tried to ignore what was happening. Love was there from the first moment we touched each other. Oh, Lord. Help this gallons KIZZIE, you're done come back here talking like a crazy person. None or uses won't have no homes. These white folks are burn all uses houses down. Mama, please calm yourself. It's not that bad anymore. It won't be easy, but it is not impossible. Paul loved me. We will work it out together. I need you to help me. Baby, Mama never told you the truth. It's time you know. KIZZIE, your papa was a white man. Mama, what did you say? Mama Veta said, it's true. KIZZIE shouted, it's true. What? Mama Veta said, you was born during this depression and times were hard. I worked for old Miss Elizabeth and her husband. Us needed the money. Your dead papa knowed yer wasn't his. He knowed what I had to do. Your 6 sisters and brothers had to eat. Wasn't no work for black men. The black wives could work in the white people's kitchen and feed their families from right there. In order to keep work, the black women had to dash to Mama Veta begin to cry. Mama, why did you keep this from me all these years? Why tell me now after I have made a fool of myself? KIZZIE, I thought you would never have to know. You brought this on yourself. What? How can you say that? It wasn't me that slept with old Lady Elizabeth's husband. Mama Veta slaps KIZZIE. They both begin to cry. KIZZIE sits down and holds her face. Mama Veta's anger leaves and she is fearful of the outcome. By acknowledging her love for Paul, KIZZIE has opened an old wound. This will prove if times has changed. Is this town ready for a mixed-race relationship? Mama Veta said, KIZZIE don't know if I can go through this again. It was bad when your papa was here. Now that Elizabeth know who yer is, she will see to your being run out of town. God knows what'll happen to me. Mama, please let me stay here a little longer. I believe together we can work this thing out. Baby, Mama done told yer, stay here as long as yer want to. This is your home. Mama is with yer. Mama cover all the ground she stand on. If old Elizabeth want a good fight, she got it. A Chance for Happiness, by author Doris Jean Ford. Faced with a decision that could affect her future, KIZZIE was not able to fall asleep. What Mama Veta had told her presented a drastic problem. Add to the problem was doubt. Did Paul know the truth? If he didn't know, what would be his reaction? If Paul did know, why didn't he tell her? Worse yet, if Paul did know, is this why he wanted her, because she was half white? KIZZIE feels a different kind of hurt. One she has never felt before. She felt like a freak. She wanted to be loved, because she was a woman, not a half-white woman. Her heartbeat seemed to be pounding half white. The next morning at 6:30, KIZZIE was in the office. She called Paul. She had to know how he felt. In a few minutes Paul was there. He looked frightened. KIZZIE, what happened? KIZZIE couldn't bring herself to look at him. Paul, it is all wrong. She covered her face with her hands and began to cry. Darling, please tell me what this is about. KIZZIE sobbed out, Mama told me the whole story. Paul, all this time, all of my life I did not know who I was. Did you know? Yes, I knew the story about you, but I didn't know you was the person until Sam told me. Paul, how do you feel about me? KIZZIE, don't you know? What kind of an answer is that, Paul? KIZZIE, you shouldn't have to ask me how I feel. If you really don't know, then our involvement has been a mistake. Involvement? Is that what you call it? Let me out of here. KIZZIE, I didn't mean it that way. I love you. KIZZIE did not wait for any further explanation. She rushed out. Sam was driving up. KIZZIE told him to carry her home. Sam asked no questions. He opened the car door for her. She was crying and gave no explanation. Sam drove around town for a while. He tried to give her a chance to cool off. Again she asked him to please carry her home. This time he headed for the open freeway. She couldn't care less. KIZZIE wanted to get as far away as possible. "You want to talk?" asked Sam. "No, not really. There's not much to talk about." Sam sat there smug with a silly grin. He wanted to say "I told you so," but this would kill his only chance with her. He needs this opportunity to win her affection. KIZZIE was vulnerable, an easy prey. Sam took advantage of this. He pulled her over to him and caressed her shoulder, letting his hand slip down to her waist. She didn't resist. Her body felt heavy and tired. It was early morning, but she was up all night with worry. Her horror story seemed to have come true. She did not notice as Sam pulled in at a motel. "You need to rest," said Sam. "Yes," said KIZZIE, without any emotion. "KIZZIE, did you eat breakfast?" KIZZIE responds as if she was a talking doll. "No, not hungry." "Stay in the car until I get the room." "Sure. Whatever you say." What was happening to KIZZIE in a motel with a man that she hates? Is this all the life she can look forward to in her future? If this is what life has thrown her, she will struggle with it. She has learned from experience, life is a fight. She has also learned you can win the battle if you keep pushing. She knows the difference between love and an affair. The lesson was a shock, because the person who taught her the lesson was an advocate of fidelity. Her husband. His affair destroyed the love in their marriage. Their sex life became only a physical reaction, to bring one of them to a climax. Most of the time it was for his satisfaction. Before this affair happened, she thought the only way she could have a sexual relationship with a man, and feel good about it, was for the relationship to mean something to both of them, then consequently the relationship would lead to a commitment. Chapter 5. Sam's cracking voice broke the silence. "Hey, you ready? We have room 23. It's around back. I'll drive around. The day is paid for. After you rest we will go eat, if that's all right with you." "That's fine." "You all right?" "Yes. I am just fine." Sam opened the door. She went in, and he left. Sam was being careful not to push KIZZIE. KIZZIE tried to sleep. How could she sleep with all those questions floating around in her head? What did the black people think about her when she was a child? Her poor old black pauper, the man she thought was her daddy, had to face his peers and accept their ugly remarks. Old Lady Elizabeth's husband. What was his role in her life except fathering her? This explains the mysterious gifts she received on her birthday and at Christmas. Her other brothers and sisters, did they know the truth? They were older than her. No. They couldn't have. During all this time, one of them would have let it slip. The children in KIZZIE's family was close, especially the younger sister. After she got married, their lives kind of went in different directions. The whole community knew she was half white. What did the white community think? KIZZIE was sure the black bothered her Elizabeth. Now she understood how Elizabeth must have been feeling then. Oh my God. Paul was my half-sister's. Did she remind him of his dead wife? Was it this attraction that brought them together? These questions continued to haunt KIZZIE. About 10:30 that morning Sam came back. He brought breakfast. She still didn't want to eat, but she tried. Old Sam was so kind. Gentle as a kitten. KIZZIE couldn't look at him. Everything KIZZIE did was as if she was in a deep sleep, dreaming. She did not see Sam the same way as she knew him to be. Sam became desirable. She ate without looking at the food. She didn't know if it was morning or night. The wine poured for her was enticing. Before now she did not drink, period. She couldn't wait for him to fill her paper cup. Cup after cup she gulped it down. Her brain became dull. She wanted to make sport with Sam. She felt like laughing. Sam was really enjoying this. At last he had his pride and joy. "Hold me, love me. I need you," she whispered. "I got you, baby. Everything is alright." This was heaven for Sam. The day was spent with the amusement of sex and drinking. At 6 p.m. that evening there was a knock on the door. A male voice said, "If you are going to stay the night, that will be $20 more." "We are ready to leave," Sam answered back. "Leave," said KIZZIE. "I don't want to leave, Sam." Sam went to the door and gave the man $20. KIZZIE lay on the bed almost helpless. Sam pours her another cup of wine. She took 2 sips. The cup hit the floor. She fell back on the bed into a drunken sleep. The next morning the warm sun shining through the window on her face awakened her. At first she did not remember the day before, or where she was. Then she looked beside her and there was Sam, snoring. The complete drama came rushing back. She began to cry. Feeling slimy, she went straight to the shower. She tried to wash off the slimy feeling on her body. She was trying to wash off the guilt. The more she washed, the clearer her mind became, making her realize that she had made another stupid mistake. The running water awakened Sam. He stretched and howled like a black dog. KIZZIE hated herself and Sam, poor Mama Veta. KIZZIE had forgotten to call her. She hurried out of the bathroom. "Sam? We forgot to call Mama. I called yesterday morning and last night." "What did you say?" "The truth." "You told her I was here in a motel room with you?" "Yes and no, the hell with that kind of answer, Sam. What kind of lie did you tell her this time?" "I told her that Mr. White Paul had kicked you out. You didn't want to come home, so I brought you here, and left you to think things over." "That's a lie. You didn't leave me here. I left you yesterday morning." "Hell, KIZZIE, you are over 21. Please take me home, Sam. This time you better not stop until you get me home." On the way home Sam told KIZZIE, whatever she told Mama Veta would be alright with him. He knew Mama Veta would be happy about what had happened between them. Sam propositioned KIZZIE. He insisted that if she would not go back to work for Paul, he would take care of her for the rest of her life. KIZZIE would not make any promises. At home, KIZZIE got out of the car. She didn't look back. She was glad to be home, but she knew the lecture was coming. Her mother surprised her. Mama Veta did not ask any questions, nor did she give any advice. KIZZIE walked up and hugged her mama. "Oh, it is so good to be home, Mama. Come on in, baby, you're doing alright?" "Yes. I hope so. Monsieur Paul called yesterday and this morning. He want you to come back to work. What you think about it?" "Don't know, Mama. Under these circumstances I can't go back. I love Paul, but I would just be an embarrassment to him. Besides, I believe he loved me." "Not me, really. It's the memory of his wife." "Mama, do I look anything like her?" "God, no, baby. Mama, I'm going to lie down. If Paul calls, I do not want to talk to him. It is best if it ends here." For several days KIZZIE mopes around the house. Paul called every day. Sam would come by, but Mama Veta talked to him outside. When the neighbors came by, KIZZIE stayed in her room. Mama Veta was protective of KIZZIE. She wouldn't mention Paul or Sam unless KIZZIE brought them in the conversation. One day while eating dinner, KIZZIE asked Mama if she thought she should go back to work. Mama Veta wanted KIZZIE to settle down and marry Sam. She knew KIZZIE did not love Sam. Old Sam would be a providing husband, and she would have a good living. Loving Paul and never having a life with him to Mama Veta would be a waste of time. She would be just another white man's plaything. She thinks about KIZZIE's feelings, and tells her to try it again. Paul called that night and KIZZIE answered the phone. His voice made her heart skip a beat. She felt faint. She didn't realize how she had missed him. He asked how she was doing. They went through the normal routine. He told her how the job was being put on hold and not doing well, since she stopped coming to work. He asked her to come back to work. KIZZIE was silent for a while, then she agreed to come the next morning. Paul was happy KIZZIE was coming back, but she sensed by the tone of his voice there was something else wrong. He did not know how to approach the situation, or how to ask her about Sam. Finally he asked if she would ride with Sam the next day. She told him that would not be possible. He told her he would bring her the car. Paul's coming to bring her the car disturbs her. She was afraid of her reaction seeing Paul again. Could she contain herself? Excitement filled her heart. The idea of seeing Paul again gave her a warm feeling all over. Will she be able to work for this man, and not show how she felt? When Paul came in, Mama Veta met him at the door, because KIZZIE was evasive. When KIZZIE finally came from her room, Mama Veta left the room. "Hello Mr. Kimball. How are you?" asked KIZZIE, politely. "KIZZIE, before you say anything else let me say this please. I knew you was Elizabeth's husband's child. That was a skeleton that fell out of the closet when her husband died. In his will, Elizabeth's husband, Mr. Philip Clayton, left an album belonging to his mother to you KIZZIE. You never received it. No one knows where it is. That is the end of that. To me KIZZIE, this is all in the past. This is our lives to live. You are a lovely woman I fell in love with. But Paul, what about the talk? You are not thinking." Paul takes her by the shoulders. "KIZZIE, listen to me. I want you. I need you. I was only half alive until you came into my life. Please KIZZIE, help me to live. Together we can meet the challenge and win. Promise me you won't let nothing or anyone separate us." "Paul, I promise with all my heart." He pulled her into his arms, and held her tight to his chest. Once again KIZZIE felt safe and secure. But could she keep her promise? Sam was shattered when he learned KIZZIE had gone back to work. Week after week he would threaten KIZZIE. Sam would tell her he was going to tell Paul she had slept with him. The last threat was, he would tell Paul that KIZZIE was carrying his child. KIZZIE had never had a baby, but for some reason for the last month the signs of pregnancy appeared, or so she thought. Each day with Paul she felt guilt. What if she was pregnant for Sam? That would be an endless nightmare. It was against everything she believed in to have an abortion. She never would be able to accept Sam's child. This was a secret she could not share with anyone. To have a baby with Sam would put her in an unseen prison. She would become his property. Chapter 6. A doctor could answer the frightening questions she needed answered. There were only 2 doctors in this small town. One of them happened to be Paul's family doctor. His patrons were the upper crust of black people and the white people of the town. The other one, supposing not to be as good, was the one that practiced on the blacks and Mexicans. Either one knew all the community gossip. At this time KIZZIE was becoming the hottest news in town. There was no one she could confide in. Her mother wouldn't understand. She would see this as an act of God. This would be the answer to the complex situation between KIZZIE and Paul. KIZZIE carrying Sam's child, she would feel compelled to marry Sam. Mama Veta would like that. She and Sam's mother was hoping something would happen to sanction the relationship between KIZZIE and Sam. Tell Sam, God forbid. It was not that Sam wouldn't take care of her and the child, but it was the price she would pay within herself. It would be just as before, she would be a nobody. Her life would be a continuation of Sam's accomplishments, a showpiece for Sam to put on display. Paul? What about Paul? He had said let nothing separate us. Can any man accept this kind of challenge? This situation was not unique but awkward. Paul a white man, she a black woman carrying a black man child. Could she ask Paul to accept this? The situation she was in was not forced. She had been hurt. She was drunk. She asked Sam to sleep with her. Something had to be done. It was getting harder for KIZZIE to stay focused on anything. She was easily aggravated. At the office she was moody. Paul tried being gentle to her. She rejected his advances. He couldn't understand her action. He carried her out for dinner as often as possible. They always went out of town. KIZZIE understood about this. Paul did not want KIZZIE to go through ugly remarks and stupid stares. Paul never acted as if he was ashamed of KIZZIE. When he was with her, his face lit up like a glowing bright light. He did not want to socialize with people which had segregated minds. They could be awful nasty. He wanted to protect her from the ugliness of segregational hatred. Nothing consoled KIZZIE's emotions. Mama Veta watched her close. She noticed KIZZIE throwing herself into work. The office was like a second home. Crying was easy. She snapped at the customers. Paul had noticed this. Saying good morning to Sam would throw her into a nervous rage. Mama Veta was in town one day and went by the office. While she was there, KIZZIE was explaining a machine operation to a customer. The person seemed not to understand. KIZZIE yelled and made a derogatory remark. The person left without purchasing the item. Mama Veta asked KIZZIE what was the trouble. KIZZIE began to cry. KIZZIE going to the doctor today? This been going on too long, said Mama Veta. Mama, I am not sick. KIZZIE yelled. Don't you raise your voice to me, snorted Mama Veta. Have you forgotten who I am? I only want the best for your. Why don't you listen sometime? Slow down, you're going too fast. I am sorry, Mama, got a lot on my mind, said KIZZIE. Gallons, you're here. Don't let no skunk pin you down. Love is good in its place. It ain't no good when you're let it be a torch. Mama, I love Paul. Paul? That is what I mean. He is the one. You're miserable because of him. Why can't you make things easy on yourself? Let Sam take care of your. Old Sam love your baby. I hate Sam, I hate Sam. Whoa. Wait a minute, at least with Sam you could hold your head up. And not be a cast out. Half accepted. Mama, is that the way you feel too, like I am a freak? KIZZIE, hold on now. I am your mama. If you are a freak, then I am a freak. Are you, Mama? Are you half white? I don't fit in your world, nor do I fit in Paul's world. Who am I? Tell me, Mama, if you can. Sam want me as a what, not to be put on a shelf to show. Will Paul ever feel the time is right to ask me to marry him? And you, Mama, trying to push me on Sam, am I that much of a burden? You know how I feel about Sam, yet you want me to submit to a life with him. Child, you sir would be better off than you are now. Oh Mama, forget it. I got to get out of here. KIZZIE grabs her purse and run out the door. She leaves Mama Veta standing with her mouth open, while driving aimlessly around town. She passed the town clinic. This was a good time to get a checkup. At the reception desk she asked to see the doctor her family used. She was told he wouldn't be in that day. This was a chance to find a very good excuse not to see a doctor. The only other doctor was Paul's family doctor. The nurse was waiting for further instructions. KIZZIE turned to walk out. The nurse asked, "Would you like to see the doctor?" KIZZIE cut her off and answered, "I'll see him." There she was face to face with the truth. When she left the office, her life would begin or it would continue to drift. Where? To a slow-living death. Death itself would be better. That way her body would be at rest. In that living prison of pride, while her mind wondered about what could have been. Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Wilson. The nurse was calling KIZZIE's name. This brought her back to reality. This way, please. The nurse asked the routine questions. KIZZIE wrote down each answer. She didn't hear most of the questions. She answered with yes and no. The nurse left. Again KIZZIE was alone with her thoughts. Wait. It seemed as if her life was a game of waiting. She heard the doctor's footsteps coming toward her. Bump, bump, bump went her heart. All of a sudden she was hot. Drops of sweat ran down her face. Her breath got short. She began to cough. The doctor rushed in. The doctor asked, "Are you all right, Mrs. Wilson?" Between coughs KIZZIE said, "I'm too hot. I can't breathe." "Mrs. Wilson, why are you frightened?" "It's too hot in here," KIZZIE said. "All right, just lay back and try to relax." The doctor called the nurse. She gave him a prepared injection needle. The doctor took KIZZIE's arm. "Mrs. Wilson, if you calm down I won't give you a shot, but if you continue to shake, you are going to get it." He looks at her and smiled. KIZZIE was somewhat relaxed by now. The nurse left again. The doctor pulled up a chair and sat near the examining table. His hair was gray. He had hazel eyes that smiled. A bedside manner that was outstanding. Rubbing KIZZIE's right arm he asked, "What may I do for you?" "Doctor, I have the signs of being pregnant. I have no children, but I have an idea what's supposed to happen." "I see, so, in your mind you are going to do my job." "Mrs. Wilson, you might not know this, but I am here, so that you need not worry and ponder. We can prove within 1 hour what you have been supposing for a couple of months." Chapter 8. The doctor examined her and gave her the pregnant test. She got dressed and returned to the waiting room. Again she waited. It was over. The truth was about to be revealed. The truth was about an hour away. It came back to KIZZIE's memory. She ran out of the office without telling anyone where she would be. Paul was going to be worried. It was about 4 p.m. Poor Mama Veta, she must have been crazy with worry. KIZZIE called Mama Veta first. Mama, I am all right. All is well. I am so happy. I want to shout right here in the doctor's office. Don't be angry with me, I did what you told me to do. I came to the doctor and got a checkup and everything is all right." Mama Veta did not know what to say. She just said, "Thank God Almighty. I am all right, Mama. You told me I needed a checkup, so that is what I am doing. I'm at the clinic. The doctor has finished the examination. Now I am waiting for the results. I'm going back to the office before I come home." KIZZIE went back and sat down in the waiting room. She knew this hour would be a long wait. The nurse came out and motioned for her to come back into the examining room. The doctor was smiling. This seemed to be good news and also could have been bad. "Well, young lady, are you still trying to take my place as a doctor?" "No, doctor," KIZZIE replied. "KIZZIE, you are fine. I don't know if you wanted to be pregnant or not, but you are not pregnant." KIZZIE wanted to jump as she did when she was in church and shout glory. She thanked the doctor and ran out of the office. She noticed stairs as she hurried out. Nothing mattered now, this nightmare was over. This time she was going to tell Paul the whole story. The months ahead were not easy. There were several encounters with Elizabeth, but the children began to like KIZZIE better. Philip enjoyed going out to Mama Veta's house. He stayed out there a few times and went fishing. The black people just could not get the idea that a white man could love a black woman. Most of the trouble came from them. Mama Veta was the talk of the town. How could she agree with that kind of mess? This man marrying his dead wife's sister. The only difference between the whites and the blacks were that the black people were afraid to show any public confrontations. On the other hand, white people just did not care. They laughed at Paul and KIZZIE when they were out in public. If they went to a restaurant and sat down, everyone around them would get up. Some of the places would not serve them. Even the police would side with the white people against them. When Paul picked KIZZIE's engagement ring, some of his friends stopped associating with him. He lost customers. They stopped buying equipment from him. When he announced they were getting married, Elizabeth threatened to leave Paul's home. She had lived with him since his wife died. Paul did not want to wait. He wanted to get married. KIZZIE asked him to wait until things cooled off a little. Paul had strict moral standards, and he did not want to sleep with KIZZIE until after they were married. He could not see why they had to wait, but after so much began to happen, he agreed. Elizabeth said there would never be a marriage between KIZZIE and Paul. Philip began to complain that his friends wouldn't have nothing to do with him because of KIZZIE. He did not want no black woman for a stepmother. Paul conquered some of the disagreements by changing his will. He made KIZZIE the beneficiary and overseer of his children. The family home would be left to KIZZIE plus the business. This changed Elizabeth's mind, then she helped change Philip. Lisa was warm and loving. She was making plans for the marriage. Her mother died when she was born. She was looking forward to KIZZIE becoming her mother. They all grew closer, and on the day of the marriage, even Elizabeth got excited. She was surprised to see so many of Paul's friends there to wish him well. The marriage was a simple affair. It was held on the patio of Paul's home. The patio was closed in, but could be opened onto the garden outside. Beautiful early spring lilies highlighted the garden. Paul looked especially handsome. He wore a dark blue suit, with a pastel blue shirt, and a beautiful tie that caught the red sparkle in his thick red hair. KIZZIE wore a pastel blue short after 5 dress, and a pale blue veil. It was a lovely ceremony. 2 people could not be more happier. Sam was the last person to leave the reception. Paul had to get someone to drive him home. Old Sam was flying high. At last the day was over, and KIZZIE and Paul were gone. They both had waited for this night a long time. Paul was eager for them to retire. It had been a long time since he had made love to a woman he loved. Outside the bedroom door, he picked KIZZIE up and carried her through the door. He kicked the door shut with his right foot. Paul stumbled. They both fell on the bed. They lay there like teenagers, poking and tickling each other. Paul started to kiss KIZZIE slowly, and unbutton her dress at the same time. All of the bitterness that KIZZIE had ever felt was gone. A flow of sweetness swept over them, and they became one. After they were undressed, he placed her on the bed, and stroked her body gently as though it was a delicate flower. He eased his body on top of hers and took her face in his hand. He began to kiss her on the neck first, then all over the face. He reached over and cut the light off. With the ease of melting butter, he slid between her legs. When he placed his lips on hers, she parted her lips and slipped her tongue into his mouth just as he inserted his penis. At this moment, KIZZIE knew that true love could be found between a black and white person. There were no color here. Just 2 people in love, fulfilling it to its fullness. 3 months later, Paul was blessed by the knowledge they were going to have a baby. The visit to the doctor this time was much different than before. KIZZIE smiled going in and shouted coming out. Paul and KIZZIE had 2 years of happiness in spite of the oppositions. There was those that tried to make it hard for them, but the love they had grew stronger. The family still was not ideal, but it was much better. The business stopped losing ground and began to grow. Paul was still working hard. He made Sam foreman over the work outside of the office. KIZZIE had been replaced by 2 other secretaries. Paul wanted KIZZIE to be home for him. The last evening had been as one of many. There had been a spring shower, and Paul called to say he would be home in about half an hour. KIZZIE went and freshened up. Paul Jr. was taking a nap in his room. His daddy had tried to talk to him on the phone when he called, but Paul Jr. was sleepy and would not talk. KIZZIE wanted the baby to be fresh and alive to meet his daddy at the door. KIZZIE sat in the den to wait for Paul. Elizabeth was sitting in there watching the news. She was talking about something the president had done that she was not satisfied with. KIZZIE was not paying much attention. It had been an hour since Paul had called. KIZZIE had begun to worry. About half-hour later the phone rang. It was Sam. KIZZIE did not want to talk to him, because Sam had begun to act so funny lately. His voice sounded very strange, and he said, "Paul's car won't start. He wants you to come pick him up. Do you know where he is working today?" "Yes, Sam, I think so." "That's out on the old cave road, isn't it?" "Yes, that's right, you better hurry and go there." Sam hung up the phone without saying bye. KIZZIE was still holding the phone, and she suddenly felt cold all over. She wondered why Paul hadn't called her himself. She didn't tarry. She asked Elizabeth to watch Paul Jr. She got in her car and started toward the cave road. It was still raining some, so she drove with caution. As she neared the curve that led to the top of the cave road, she noticed flashing lights. Thinking that Paul had gotten a tow truck to pull his car in, she did not notice that the flashing lights was on police cars. She saw Paul's car being pulled up from the deep ditch. Then it hit her that there on stretches was a covered body. She looked around, searching the crowd for Paul. She heard a man say, "The guy that was in that car is dead." KIZZIE said, "No. Not Paul." A policeman, not knowing she was Paul's wife, pulled back the sheet. Laying there cold and lifeless was Paul. KIZZIE flung herself on the stretcher, holding on to Paul. She began to cry frantically. Then she screamed louder and louder. The policeman caught her by the shoulders and roughly pulled her back. Someone asked, "Who is this woman?" The policeman shouted, "Come get this damned black woman, before she dragged this body off here." KIZZIE could hear the people talking, but they seemed to be in another world. Someone shouted, "That's the dead man's wife." The policeman said, "Why in the hell didn't someone tell me that?" KIZZIE began to scream again, "Paul? Paul, please? You can't leave me now. Not this way, Paul. Not now, not now." There at the funeral, for one quick moment, KIZZIE's life flashed through her memory. She began to cry. She had lived 2 lifetimes only, to get prepared for one. Mama Veta took her hand and consoled her. KIZZIE got control of herself, and gathered up her family. Lisa put her arms around KIZZIE's waist, and Philip took Paul Jr. out of her arms, and they walked toward car. Mama Veta caught Elizabeth's hand and they followed. The moment was miserable and dark, but the future held hope. KIZZIE had learned some vital lessons. The lessons of love and determination. Love can conquer hate and segregation, and at the same time bring confidence. She is determined now more than ever to make a beautiful life for herself and her new family. There was a new beginning with Paul Jr. Paul had not had an accident, he had been killed. Sam had went to the police station and confessed. He told them that he and Paul had quarreled about KIZZIE, and that he had told Paul, if he couldn't have KIZZIE, no white son of a bitch. He had accused Paul of buying KIZZIE's affections, therefore causing him to lose her. Paul had fired him that morning and thought he was gone home, but Sam had stayed and cut the brake lines on Paul's car. Sam knew it had rained, and Paul would be traveling the cave road, which had a deep curve at the top of a hill, and without brakes the car would go over the embankment. He saw the car go over, and checked to see if he was dead. Paul was not dead at first, but Sam realized it was just a matter of time. He left him there and went and called KIZZIE. He wanted her to find her white lover dead. KIZZIE Scene 1. KIZZIE comes to live with her mother, Mama Veta. At the old home place where she was born, she tells Mama Veta the reason for her coming home. Death has forced her into seeking a new lifestyle. Mama Veta welcomes her to stay, but is skeptical. KIZZEE Scene 2. KIZZIE is reacquainted with Sam, an old schoolmate at a rural black church. KIZZIE has come to church to meet new friends, and get reacquainted with the old ones. A job opportunity is presented and KIZZIE begins to feel alive again. Sam assures her that she could be on her way. KIZZIE knows this opportunity must be pursued to its fullest. KIZZEE Scene 3. KIZZIE meets Paul, a Caucasian in his middle 40s, in his office. She has come for a job interview. A feeling of inferiority creeps over her. Paul says he will try her out for a while and see what happens. Remembering her vow, she puts forth a good showing, because this job would surely lead to something better. KIZZEE Scene 4. KIZZIE meets Paul's family. In Paul's office, Paul wants his family to get to know KIZZIE. She is received warmly by Lisa, Paul's daughter, but is treated as a hired hand by Elizabeth and Philip, Paul's mother-in-law and son. There is no type of relationship established between KIZZIE and Paul's family. A secret feeling KIZZIE has for Paul pushes her to win the respect of his family. Again, death decides her destiny.